Tales from the Jails with John G. Sutton. Thank you very much for watching this channel. Today I'm going to talk about corruption in the prison system and basically how it works, how it's supported by the system and why the system can't change until there is a major shift in power at the very top. And that's not going to happen, folks, is it? Now basically what happens is prison staff are cannon fodder. They recruit prison officers, and 99% are just cannon fodder. They are not there to actually make decisions or to really uphold what we know to be the statutory law of this country. The Prison Act. The Prison Act, as it happens, as it's interpreted in the prisons, is administered and adjudicated upon by people in positions of authority. Now, I know this sounds like a mad left-wing theory, but it's my experience. I've seen this happen, and I know the people who are up the ladder and making the decisions. They're not making the decisions based on the law. No, they're making decisions based upon their particular prejudice, upon what is expedient for the system, for their system, not for the system of law. And the junior staff, the foot soldiers, they're expendable. Now, one absolute certainty that it illustrates how expendable the junior ranks are. Look at the conviction rate of female prison officers and junior prison staff in the system at the moment. If you have a look, some prisons have had, there's one prison, I'm going about this before, 38 members of staff, female members of staff, prosecuted for inappropriate interactions with inmates. Now, the state, the Home Office, the Ministry of Justice owe a duty of care to their employees, and they're throwing them to the wolves. Absolutely. You can't take a 20, 18, 20, 25-year-old young lady and put them into the deep end in a male prison dealing with sophisticated male criminals who many have served numerous times in prison, know exactly what they're doing, how to manipulate them, and expect anything other than what they're getting, and that is the prison officers, female prison officers and junior staff are being corrupted by these people. Now, whether that's something they didn't expect, it's hard to believe. You've only got to look at the way that I know it's wandering off at a tangent here. I'm not Donald Trump, but I want to tell you that the GPO did the same thing with the post offices. Listen, if I was the Postmaster General and suddenly thousands of my staff, the managers of the post offices, were reported as defrauding the business, defrauding me, I would consider that there was something wrong with the system. I wouldn't consider that I'd suddenly hired 1,000 crooks. No. This is generally speaking, postmasters are not by nature crooks. They have to attend quite a complex course on how to administer the system for the post office. And generally speaking, you wouldn't get a crook wasting the time doing that. They can make far more money dealing on the streets, robbing people, dealing in drugs, enforcement, demanding money with menaces, all the rest of it. They wouldn't get themselves a job as a postmaster. And it would strike me, if I was the postmaster in head of the General Post Office, it would strike me there was something wrong with the system. Whoever was in charge of that when all these poor innocent people were persecuted and reduced to, some of them actually pled guilty when they knew they weren't guilty, because they would have solicitors who were part of the team, by the way. Don't know if you know that. they're part of the team as well. And if your solicitor advises you to plead guilty, because if you plead not guilty, you're just going to get more time. You go to prison. If you plead guilty, you'll have a fine and you'll walk away, rebuild your life. So people pled guilty when they were innocent. That's how the system works, folks. And it's the same in the prison system. You get junior staff joining, and let's face it, the Ministry of Justice, the Home Office, conspired with management to get rid of the experienced staff. Why did they want to do that? Ask yourself this. Because if we go back 40 years, 50 years, the prison staff had been in there. A lot of them have been in there 20, 30 years. They knew exactly how to run the prisons. They knew how to keep inmates under control. It may very well, and I have highlighted this in my books, have been violent, but the violence wasn't, generally speaking, administered willy-nilly. It was administered as required. But it was experienced staff that knew what the limits were and knew how to deal with inmates. Not anymore, because the Ministry of Justice, the Home Office, they decided they'd get rid of all the long-serving officers and replace them with hostesses and inexperienced staff. Now, the recruiting staff who have got no idea whatsoever about giving direct orders. When I was joined the prison service, a lot of the staff were ex-military. Now, and they recruited NCOs, ex-NCOs. Now, as an NCO in the British Army, you go on to various training courses on how to discipline the soldiers that you're working with. I mean, it wasn't cruelty. It was how to make people effective machines to do what they had to do. Because in the time of battle, you can't be saying to somebody, "Oh, do you think we should go over there? What do you reckon about us taking that trench over there? How do you fancy that?" "No, I'm not doing that." You can't do that. You get the NCO saying, "Right, you get up there too, Smith, go, right, yeah, you, do it." And they cannot question it. Because if they do question it, off to the slammer. And believe me, I was the Provo Corporal at one regiment, and being in the slammer, being in the glass house is no easy thing to be. It really is quite arduous. Anybody who's from the 1960s, 1970s, who've experienced military prison will tell you it's hell on earth. Far worse than Wormwood Scrubs or Strange Ways ever was. The film on that is The Hill, with Sean Connery. I previously mentioned that. So the corruption in the system, how does it work? They recruit basic grade staff and they give them no support. Throw them in the deep end, minimum training. They pretend that they are being trained. They're not being trained. They're being given a set of keys, a big hat, and sent in there to do a thankless, hopeless task because it's impossible. The inmates are completely different level of inmates than they were 40, 50 years ago. Now we've got drug addicts, we've got people who are in ethnic minority groups, we've got people who are being radicalised, and they're still being radicalised in prison. And you've got inexperienced staff who are not accustomed to giving direct orders, not accustomed to being in charge of groups of men, not accustomed to actually physically dealing with violence that's offered to them, and psychologically ill-prepared for defending themselves against the sophisticated criminals, male criminals that are going to be approaching vulnerable 18, 25-year-old young women, who have never faced an angry man in their life. And that has been done by the Home Office. And when it goes wrong, who gets the blame? So who gets the blame? The foot soldiers, the inexperienced staff that they have put in danger. They've placed them into positions of, well, it's untenable. They can't work it. And they're understaffed, vastly understaffed. Inmates are being locked in the cells 23 hours a day, and the corruption is coming from the top. Why is it being done? Well, people are making a lot of money out of this. I've previously mentioned it before. You've got groups like Serco and G4S that are running private prisons for profit, a modern form of slavery. They've got it in America. Happens in America. In America, the way the jails work, the way they fund themselves is not only fund from the state, from the local states where they're at, but they actually run factories inside the prisons. A lot of the white goods in America are made within the prisons, and the inmates are required to work. So they have to work in the prisons like they're working in a factory from the 1970s, 1960s Britain, the factory system. Inside the jails in America, producing the white goods, the tumble dryers, the freezers, the dishwashers, the washing machines, inside the prisons, built inside the prisons. Yeah, paying the inmates nothing, virtually nothing. So there's that kind of nonsense in America, and it's coming to Britain, and it's going to disintegrate further unless somebody gets a grip of it. But I can't see anybody doing that, can you? Not at the moment. Corruption and things. And the problem is, who's running it? I hate to keep harping on about this, but the people who hold the purse strings, they're doing it. Who are the people who hold the purse strings? A lot of them are very well-connected individuals. They don't get their hands dirty. They don't go out there into society and don't go out there, get a big hat on and a set of keys, march around. No. They appoint people to do that for them. And then when things go slightly astray, they just lock them up. Absolutely and utterly disgraceful. Corruption is rife in the system, and it ain't going to get put right by anybody I can see at the moment. Right, here we go. I'm now going to sing you a song, actually. Are we ready? That's the song dinger, folks. It's time to escape, if you're inclined to escape. Catherine, if you're watching, thank you very much for giving me an opinion on the early start of my next book, which is part 3. You can read part 1 and 2 of HMP Manchester Prison Officer on Amazon. I'm now working on part 3, and that is just started. I'm coming towards the end of chapter 1. And Catherine has very kindly given me my opinion on that. Thank you for that, Catherine, and Paula, and Larry the Goatherd. So now I'm going to torture you a little bit. Yeah, you've asked for it, you see. You're still around, it's your fault. This is a song, I particularly like this song. It's sung by Glenn Campbell, Murdered by Me, By the Time I Get to Phoenix. Are you sitting comfortably? You won't be by the time I've finished. By the time I get to Phoenix, she'll be rising. She'll find the note I left hanging on her door. She'll laugh when she reads the part that says I'm leaving, 'cause I've left that girl so many times before. By the time I make Albuquerque, she'll be working. She'd probably stop at lunch and give me a call. But she'll just hear that phone keep on a-ringing off the wall. That's all. By the time I make Oklahoma, she'll be sleeping. She turns softly and call my name out low, and she'll cry just to think I'd really leave her, though time and time I've tried to tell her so. She just didn't know I would really go. There you go. Nice flat note at the end. Tales from the Jails, folks. John G. Sutton.